Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate, brought to you by the Weekly Armchair. I hope you're all very well. I've got a wonderful panel on tonight. Obviously, huge news over the last 24 hours, 48 hours. We will be talking about that. And of course, we've got the game against Arsenal this weekend. So we've got our good man Will below me to give us a little bit of insight on what he thinks. And we'll talk about Arteta. I'm going to play you a little clip later on. Anyway, good to see you all. I hope you're all well. Get your comments in. We want to obviously go through all the comments and discuss. Phil, great to have you on, buddy. It's been a little while since I've seen you. I hope you're well. So the news, you're more than welcome. Always great to have you on. And talk to me about how you're feeling about Erik Ten Hag and the announcement today, Phil.
It's a positive, obviously, because I think that some of the things that we've seen about Ten Hag that has been slightly different from what we've seen from other managers is we're seeing much more, a much broader change at the football club. It's not just Ten Hag. It seems like it's an admission from Manchester United that a lot has to change. Because to me, I think the first thing United have to realize is that, for Ten Hag to be successful, it can't be him on his own. It has to be a process. It has to be they have to give him a foundation to be successful. You need to have a responsibility to anyone coming in that they're going to give him every opportunity to be successful, not to work against them, and realize that a lot of the problems they're asking him to fix, they created. So I think first and foremost, there has to be an acknowledgement from United that the way they've tried to run the football club over the last 9-10 years has failed. I mean, the fact that they've hired multi-millionaires who can't buy into what they're asking them to do and are going through the motions really is an awful admission from the people who are responsible for having a football team that's competitive on the pitch. I mean, when we listen to what United are asking for, a lot of this sounds familiar. I mean, Solskjaer said when he came in, he wanted United to be the fittest team in the league. Now we're back talking about fitness again. I mean, these are the lowest metrics possible for professional footballers. We want them to be fit. We want them to care. I mean, this is how bad it is. This is, in some sense, it's a good thing because Ten Hag comes into a football club. Now he's not following Ferguson. The football club's a mess. There's an admission that a lot needs to change, and I think that he will be the best supportive manager United have had since Ferguson because of the mess they're in.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Good points, well made. And I think they are trying to obviously, well, from things that I've read over the last few days, and I know you have to take these things with a pinch of salt. For example, Jim Lawler, who's been the chief scout since I think 2004, very much talks about him leaving and obviously being part of that process. But Stu, good to have you on, buddy. Really good to see you yet again. I've seen a lot of your face in the last week, which has been great.
Too much.
Too much, some might say. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just touching on what Phil said with obviously the support that he needs around him. It is a very good appointment in my eyes. I would have been happy with either he, Poch, or Luis Enrique, but I would have been disappointed if Ten Hag had gone to City. But with that, we need to be aware that he needs that support around him, as Phil said. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, hey, it's good to see you again, Phil. But secondly, more importantly, Phil, as usual, is spot on, isn't he, in everything that he said? So I don't want to touch on that part, really, because I've got nothing more to add. What I would add, and what I've noticed, is that Ten Hag's going to bring a modern style of football to the club, but with an old school mentality. And that's something we've not seen for a long, long time. We've had, Mourinho and Van Gaal, quality coaches, but they've never really embraced modernism. And you and Jamie know what I think about modern football. Bunch of posers. I like to see old style football, old school football. But I think Ten Hag offers that. And I think he offers, when you consider potentially where he could have gone, the career path that he could have chosen, he may have been able to go, to Germany or something like that and taken an easier ride. You got to doff your cap to a man who's in the fledgling career still. He's only 52, so he's got a while yet before he's, he'd hung up his coaching badges. To come to a club which is, as Phil quite rightly pointed out, and I'm sure the lads will add to that, is on its knees. Is a great testament, I think, to the type of personality that we're going to see in the dugout moving forward. And I think you'll see that type of personality regenerate itself into the new types of players that he wants to bring and his style of football that he wants to bring. And Phil was right when he spoke about, and Jamie spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. Mark, you've spoken about it. You've probably spoken about it, Will, from an Arsenal fan's perspective. You've got a bunch of players who clearly can't be bothered to even apply the basics of football, let alone, any complications towards football in terms of tactics. So he's got a big job as Ten Hag. Over the next few days, I think will be really interesting to see whether Paul Mitchell comes on board, whether McLaren comes on board as a coach. I know there's been conflicting reports. I happen to think that McLaren's an excellent coach, not a very good manager, but as a coach, a football coach, I think he's excellent. And I think he would be ideal to work alongside Ten Hag, which they did years ago at FC20. So for me, brilliant appointment. I preferred him over Poch. I preferred him over Poch due to the fact that he's rebuilt an Ajax side and kept them competitive when he lost 4 or 5 world-class, well, I don't use the term world-class, as you know, but high-quality footballers. So moving forward, I think we can only be positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Positive and patient is what we need to
be.
But yeah, good points, well made. Just wanted to say, guys, a lot of you watching, get your comments in, like, subscribe, all that jazz, as I say every time. Sound like a broken record, but it really helps us out. Jamie, wonderful to have you on, my man. It's been a couple of weeks, but I hope you're really well. People talk about perhaps who he'll bring in as in number 2, and obviously we're not going to know that until that happens. Lots of talk about Robin van Persie initially, Steve McLaren, who else was there? René Mullenstein as well. Obviously, we need to. The difference from what's happened in the last few years is Man United have not really allowed the manager to do what he wants for whatever reason. But do you think it's important? I want to get your view, obviously, on Ten Hag and how you feel about that too. But do you think it's important that Ten Hag needs to be given the time and space to do what he wants and bring in who he wants?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first, thanks for having me on. It's always lovely to see you. And
always welcome,
good, a really good panel to be part of. So for me, yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with the question about, is it important for a manager to have the staff that he chooses? If a manager wants Barney the dinosaur as their assistant, for me, you get them Barney the dinosaur, because the first thing you absolutely cannot do, the first fundamental rule of bringing in a manager, especially in a period of time that we're doing now, is you cannot undermine the credibility of the appointment by going against their wishes for the staff that they want to choose. Now, I know sometimes that hasn't worked. I think one of the biggest mistakes David Moyes made in his United career was completely upending the backroom staff that had been there, the previous year for a title winning side. But the thing is, that was his decision to make, so the buck stops with him. What we need to move away from, and I've said this a few times on different podcasts across YouTube, is that we need to be in a position where if the results aren't coming in, the problem lies with either the management or the coaches. There can't be these overarching factors, these ulterior motives that people have to say, well, he wanted this person in at the club, we didn't get them. He wanted this transfer to go ahead, we didn't get them. Because that's where we end up with, rightly, we've had the protests and stuff like that, the fans voicing their opinions that have been going on, since 2005. But we need to separate, for me, to be a healthy football club, there needs to be that separation of being able to protest the owners and voice your opinions on the ownership of the club, but also being able to back the manager and understand that every decision has been made by him and every step has been put in place for him to be successful. I agree with what Stu said, and I said you could probably go back 12 months and there's stuff of me saying that I think Erik Ten Hag would be a brilliant appointment for us to make. My biggest fear, as you probably know, has always been that he would walk into that City side when Pep decides to hang his boots up. I think that would have been a brilliant appointment, and he would have gone on to just continue the work that he's done and continue to dominate. Again, like with what Stu said.
The difference is as well with City at the moment, they are a very, very well-run club, and United aren't, and they need to get to that point in order for him to succeed.
Yeah, massively. And again, you think that he could, like Stu mentioned, he could have gone into Germany, and again, Ten Hag stinks of if Nagelsmann hadn't worked out, Bayern would be all over that like a rash on chips. Dortmund, it's a very, very, very Dortmund appointment. We know that the clubs in Germany are run far, far better than they are over here. So he would have had an easier ride. But instead, he's decided to come to rainy old Manchester and try and help us out the mire. So I like where we're going. But the problem is, and most United fans will agree with this, hopefully, is there's this sense of niggling doubt in the back of everyone's mind. You know, we seem to make these right decisions, but we've heard it all before. We've been through this path. We've been down this road where we start to seem to make noise and make movements like we're a serious club again. We make clever decisions that seem clever on paper, and then we find a way to do the complete opposite. So for me, bringing in a manager that is entering a really important stage of the prime of his career, he's been given a really good opportunity for both parties to, like you said, to modernise the football that we play, to get us hopefully back to winning ways and to make a decent appointment. But it works both ways. So it's never nice when somebody loses their job. But the fact that we're having a revamp of the scouting network, I personally don't think we've ever had a scouting network. I think the people that worked at the top of the club used to go on FIFA career mode and see whichever players were popular on there. And I've mentioned it a few times. We never identify players who are stepping into that area of they're going to look good and they're going to be picked up by big clubs in a couple of years. We only ever seem to pick them up when they're already wanted. But yeah, I'll finish it by saying, for me, as much as I want us playing fantastic football, and I think it's a good appointment, the biggest one for me is the one metric that you can't get wrong and that every football player should be judged on is your effort and how you try. And we've not been trying. And it's the simplest thing. And I'm sure I'll touch on it more in the show, but I've waffled on a bit too long now. But yeah, big thumbs up for the appointment for me. And I just hope that we back him and give him the patience that he deserves.
Big thumbs up indeed. And I can listen to you all week, mate, so don't you ever apologise to me about that. Will, great to have you on, buddy. Probably the nicest Arsenal fan I know. Got a lot to say, but how you doing, my man? And your thoughts really on the Ten Hag appointment. And obviously we need to see the proof in the pudding. We probably need to see changes, but is this a worry from an Arsenal perspective with the appointment of him?
It's a little bit of a worry, but again, it all depends on how the rest of the board and how much he actually gets backed by the club in terms of the whole structure. There's always been a feeling around United in the last few years where it's been half in, half out, how you'd back him for one window, then you wouldn't back him in the next. And he has to come in and be very strong. Now, I expect him to come in, and it's not just who he brings in, it's all the attitudes that he gets rid of, all the ones that go out on free agents. I look at it and see, like, we were in a transition not so long ago. We chose to get rid of Unai Emery and bring in Arteta at that time, which I felt he set the tone straight away with his attitude, saying we need a complete culture change. And that's also needed at United. The complete culture in the club is just, it's toxic. It feels the exact same like as it did with us. And to do that, you need someone that is very strong and hopefully for Yi in a way. Well, I don't really mean hopefully in a way because I'd rather see Yi falter just because it would help our cause. But hopefully for Yi, then he can just bring in his own people, bring in the staff he wants. Then you get rid of the players. Then you start bringing in your own players. And look, this won't happen in 1 or 2. This won't happen in the first season. Like, it's going to be building stages where you've got to be a little bit patient and understanding, which I sometimes worry with some of the social media fans that are in your club as well as ours, that he might not get given the time as much. But he's definitely got the potential to take you back up there.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. You're absolutely spot on. It's obviously from a rival fan point of view. It's until they see a difference, they may not be worried, and I totally understand that. Will, I got a little clip actually of you and your man Phil from last year, and it's to do with Antonio Conte and whether you would take him and replace him over Arteta. I'll just play that first of all. You remember this, Phil, yeah?
I mean, look, I would swap Arteta for Conte, yes. But if I sacked Arteta, I wouldn't go for Conte necessarily.
Why?
Allow
me to grab my bonbons.
I don't know, just personally.
So does that still ring true, Will, or are you happy now with Arteta?
Look, I've always kind of rated Arteta. Yeah, I'm still happy with Arteta. I still wouldn't long-term change him with Conte. I still feel happy with him in the club, and I just feel he's just the structure of the club underneath him benefits for a long-term success a bit more than under a Conte that can bring you maybe to greater heights, but an even greater downfall. That's how I feel.
Yeah, good answer indeed. Phil, obviously with on Ten Hag a little bit more signings, especially in the last sort of 8, 9, 10 years, they've bar one or two, have been incredibly poor, and United have tended to go for the commercial value of a player as opposed to something that fits the team. What do you feel that could change at United? Do you expect that to change? Obviously, it needs to in order for it to work. But what gives you any impression that will happen? Because I think that needs to happen.
What concerns me about this is that none of what you see right now is an accident. This is a consequence of a very deliberate strategy that comes from the top down. When we talk about cultural reset, the only cultural reset that needs to happen is Manchester United need to prioritize winning football games as the most important thing to them. Once again, the problem is the culture from the top down is, as long as we're making money, it doesn't really matter about anything else. And so if you hire a chef and you give him bread and water and you say, make me steak and caviar, you're not getting steak and caviar. Right? So this is what people need to understand, where Ten Hag's influence starts and ends, and what it takes to get a product on the field that's commensurate with what your manager wants. You have to give a chef the ingredients to make what you want. Otherwise, you aren't getting what you want. You'll get a mishmash of garbage that's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The team that played Liverpool had 4 Mourinho signings, 3 Solskjaer signings, 2 Ferguson, and a couple of promoted academy kids. I mean, are you serious? And so we think that this is Rangnick's fault for what happened. I mean, if you put me in a Grand National and say to me, here, win the Grand National on a cart horse, and the cart horse doesn't run, is it my fault? You blame the jockey? I mean, at some point, there's other sentient human beings, and if they don't do what you ask them to do because they're determined not to, what I saw at Liverpool was I saw 11 players out there for the money at Manchester United, and I saw 11 players out there playing for something other than money with Liverpool, and it showed, right? And in order to win something, you have to be money. You have to have something that means something to you. You accomplish anything in your life. Anyone who's done a job solely for the money will know how soulless that is, right? So that's what I see at United. Nobody identifies with anything. So to me, what I'm concerned about is Richard Arnold and Ed Woodward are a symptom of the virus being the Glazers, right? They are representative of an ideology. And I know I live with these people every day, and I know exactly how they look at sport. I know exactly how they look at life. I know exactly what they value and what they don't value. These are people that value property. These are people that get an adrenaline rush out of making money. They do not care about the things that you and I talk about. We're having 2 different conversations. We talk about Manchester United from the perspective of fans. They talk about Manchester United internally from the perspective of business. Manchester United's executives are the highest paid in the league. By what metric are they successful? The only metric they're successful in is commercial business, right? So clearly that's how they're incentivized to run this football club, right? So the first thing they need to do is stop that and incentivize people for football success. That's not just the people at the top. That's also the players. So when you worship individual brands, what was it someone said the other day? Ralph Rangnick said Liverpool were a bunch of Formula One cars, 25 Formula One cars. Well, Richard Arnold said Manchester United are 26 George Clooney's. Now that's a difference, right? And that gives you an idea of what United see when they see a player. They monetize them to death, right? They turn them into individual brands. And then they expect a collective spirit instead of dressing room. It's impossible. They're all on damage limitation once someone loses, because the first thing they're thinking about is the damage to my brand, my image, my revenue. There's no one taking responsibility. How can you get people to take responsibility for this whenever the very nature of your relationship with them is to separate them from your teammates, to make them individual brands that you commercialize? So this is what concerns me about Manchester United. If you look at what they've done over the last couple of years, there's been some micro changes. The youth academy's improved, right? With Solskjaer, did. This is the first manager that's been hired as a result of a footballing director and a football process, because they didn't meet with Richard Arnold until the end of it. So there's been some micro changes in the background, but no macro changes. Macro changes require a whole shift in ideology, a whole shift in what they prioritize. I have my doubts that the Glazers are going to become benevolent owners and once again prioritize football. But they're in a very precarious situation, because with United, it's a massive pendulum. When things are going well, you can capitalize and monetize the club to death. But when it's not, that big weight shifts the other way. And then you see what happens to Maguire. You see what happens to Rashford. You see what happens to Lingard. You see what happens to so many players, Pogba. All these people getting abuse on a level that, right, quite frankly, is unacceptable. But this is the problem when you play for a club like Manchester United. When it's going well, you can monetize it to death. When it's not, it's one of the worst places to be. And United are creators of their own demise. Everything that's happening is a consequence of how they run this football club.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And you make a really good point there, actually. I've spoken about this a few times. Whilst they are good businessmen, I really feel that if they kept United at the top, making the right decisions and winning, they would have made even
100%.
more money. Even more money. So
well,
to me, that...
Just on that, Mark, I could say most United fans had reconciled the fact that the Glazers aren't going anywhere. So they were okay with supporting Manchester United in spite of the Glazers owning them. But every time United fall apart, this protest start again. They bring this on. If they just ran the football club even partly as prioritizing football, a lot of these protests wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, you have to look at these things subjectively, and I do listen. Nobody likes the Glazers. We are all on the same page with that. However, if things were different and we were winning things, you have to look at what they have done, and they have invested a lot of money in the club. Okay, they have spent a lot of money. I know that's not their money, and whatever else, all the sort of caveats around it. But Stu, I feel that he's absolutely right. You know, if we were in a better position, I don't think that we would have the protests. We would have the animosity towards him, and we are the master of our own downfall, because we kind of chop and change depending on what the situation is. Yes, it's a very, very strange one. But part of me, Stu, thinks that things are going to change. Now, I said to you today, I wear my heart on my sleeve, but with the changes that have happened, and as Phil alluded to, micro changes so far, hopefully it means that we're going to go on to bigger and better things. And I just feel that this summer they can't. At some point, they need to draw a line, and they have to make those changes. But do you think that could happen, or do you think that I'm probably wrong?
No, I think those changes will happen by virtue of Ten Hag himself. I would imagine that during the interview process, I think he's on record, or there is a record of saying he ripped United to pieces in the very first interview. So I'd imagine during the interview process, he laid out chapter and verse exactly what he expects, not what he wants, what he actually expects. And I think he's the type of guy that won't accept anything else or anything less than what he wants. The interesting thing about where the club is, yeah, he is for us. Yeah, the interesting thing about where the club is, and you have to look at, unfortunately, modern day society, because if this was happening in the 70s and the 80s, nobody would care. They might have a bit of a pop in the pub, etc., etc. But you could never do it publicly like you can do today. And you've got a variety of the fans that will quite happily hide behind a keyboard, and as Phil says, abuse players, which is completely unacceptable. But there are, fans, including myself, who look at certain players who are earning certain amounts of money. And somebody like me, at my tender age, I'm still can't wait to pull on a football kit, and go and play with my mates, or go and play in a league, and at my tender age. Whereas these guys are doing it every day, and they just don't seem to be bothered. So I think Ten Hag would have given them a roadmap. and put out certain goals and targets for himself and his staff that he wants to achieve and will achieve. But he needs the right type of profile around him to be able to do that, the right type of personnel beside him in the dugout and actually representing the club on the pitch. And I think the difference between the likelihood of our recruitment moving forward to the dross that we've had for the past 9 years is going to be quite alarming, really, in terms of great, not alarming in terms of ouch. And what I mean by that is I think Ten Hag and whoever, Ranić, Mitchell, if he comes in, they'll be looking at a type of player that not only fits the on-field, but fits the off-field side of Manchester United as well. That fits the whole, or buys into the whole idea of what Ten Hag wants to be and what Manchester United want to be moving forward. And Phil's right. Jamie knows this. We're not going to get rid of the Glazers. The biggest issue for us fans at the moment was Roman Abramovich selling Chelsea, and he's likely to get 3 billion quid. Well, that means somebody's got to fork out 5 billion straight, plus another 2 or 3 billion in terms of, wanting to sell on and, redoing the stadium, redoing the training ground. I mean, we become a seriously expensive outfit. So I think we are stuck with the Glazers. I think the Glazers potentially realise this now. And I think if we get the infrastructure, if the Glazers just disappear now and allow Arnold to appoint the right people in the right positions to enable them to run off a leash, by the way, and just report to him, but give them complete autonomy, it will take 5 years, maybe longer, but we will get back to where we want to be. Not where we expect to be, but where we want to be. And I think that's going to be the critical aspect of the project moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I did read today, and I think it was, of course, Jamie Carragher throwing him under the bus a little bit and saying, for a club like United and for someone like Erik Ten Hag, it shouldn't take 4 or 5 years. It should be 2 before they're starting to be on the right track. Now, it made me think Klopp didn't come in and get anything within 2 years. It took them about 4 or 5 years. So how can he say that? Jamie, what do you make of those comments, and what do you expect? What would you see as a fair and patient assessment? What would you expect within 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think both Phil and Stu were spot on in everything that they said. I think what sums up the last 10 years for me in terms of the decisions that have been made from the business side of the club was, I can't remember who it was that said it now, but they said, you ask an average football fan how many, chief executives, executive vice chairmen, whatever you want to call them, how many of them in the Premier League they can name, and most of them will tell you they can probably name 2. One of them will be Ed Woodward, and the other one will probably be Daniel Levy, because they were these two figureheads of poor decisions. The people that do well in their football clubs are hardly ever known outside of their own circles, outside of their own football club, because they work quietly and there's never this big uproar about them. Whereas with us, and with Spurs, there was always this thing of, you're not doing your job. Ed Woodward's job was to generate money for this club, and one of our biggest downfalls is that the club always generated money. We were always profitable, and year on year, season on season, you always saw us up there, top 3, top 4, whatever, with the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, and the likes. While that's happening, for people that aren't invested in football and don't care about football, there's going to be no need for a change, because the dividends roll in, the money continues to roll in. So why are they going to stop their business model? If you're a chief executive of any other business that isn't sport related and your profits are coming in, but your staff are saying, oh, we don't like the shop floor or whatever, you don't care, because the money's coming in, so something's working. So I agree with what Stu said, and unfortunately, the pessimist in me, I do think we're going to be stuck with the Glazers. The problem, the way forward now is, and it's looking positive, and again, I'm trying to hold myself back from being too excited, because I've been hurt before. We've all been here before. Is Ranić seems to be making a lot of good noise. He's doing a lot of good ripping up of the carpet and stuff like that, and exposing the inadequacies of this club. Most United fans that knew what they were talking about knew that Ralph Ranić was not going to come in, have us firing all cylinders, getting us into the top 4, top 3, dead easily.
Sorry to interrupt, Jamie.
That's
this
right,
is
mate.
one of the best things that's happened in the last 8 months. And
Absolutely.
actually, after the game against Liverpool, some of the things that Ralph was saying, and he said continuously over the last few months, he's basically said, it didn't take Liverpool. It took Liverpool a number of years to do it. It's going to take us maybe 4 or 5 windows, probably 8 or 9 players. We're going to try and get in this, that and the other. I know that's obviously blown out of proportion, but he really hasn't held back. And I think that's been an absolute blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, take the best thing that happened in the last 8 months out of the equation. I think it's one of the best things that's happened in the last 10 years. We've got a football man that's come into the club and has effectively gone right. It's effectively like having a building surveyor come into your building and go, what are you doing here? You've got leaks in your roof here. And which is ironic because we do have leaks in the roof at Old Trafford. But you know what I mean? He's come round and he's trying to get us up to scratch because we're still operating from a different rule book than we should be. So I want to see us make sensible decisions. And like Phil and Stu both said, and Mark, you've alluded to as well, if the football's right, if the success is there, the money follows even more. What we can never escape, and we never will escape, and I'm glad for it in one way, is we are a global brand. We are the biggest football club in England, one of the biggest football clubs in Europe, if not the biggest. That will continue to drive revenue no matter what. And if people want to go out and buy a replica shirt, let them go out and buy a replica shirt. Don't crucify somebody for buying their kid, a kit with Ronaldo on the back or whatever, because in your minds, you're just putting money in the. What's 40 quid doing? Do you know what I mean? For me, it's about patience now. And you've seen on social media today that despite the good news that's come out, it's probably one of the most exciting appointments that we've made. I never got behind Jose, if I'm being honest. I backed him because he was a United manager, but I was never excited by him. Solskjaer, when he was appointed, I wasn't too enamoured with. I loved what he did for the football club in his tenure, but he didn't get me out of my seats. Louis van Gaal, I was excited about, I can't lie.
Yeah, me too.
But this one,
needed a bit more time, I think.
Yeah. And as we know what he said about the football club, haven't we? His issues. So for me now, it's all about the decisions and the recommendations that Ralph's making. We have to act on them. The man knows what he's talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about utilising his input, his expertise, allowing Ten Hag to come in and build a structure that supports him, his coaching staff. If he says, we need this profile of player, here's what I'm looking for, that's where you utilise your scouting network. You don't jump on SofaScore or Transfermarkt and go, you know what, which players are up. You know what I mean? Like, everyone at the minute is banging on about Ousmane Dembele, right? Don't get me wrong, I think he's a phenomenal player on his day, but where have we heard the phrase on his day before, But there will be footballers. Yeah, there will be footballers out there that fit the profile that Ousmane Dembele plays in. Okay, they'll be playing in the French second division at the minute. They'll be playing in, a smaller club in the Bundesliga. They'll be playing over in Holland. So we need to have a decent scouting network that go out and find these players that fit the mould of player that the manager and his coaches recommend for us before we end up paying that £70 million. Because one of the biggest mistakes we'll make this summer if we do it is we'll sign Declan Rice for £100 million. And no matter how good he plays, he will never be a £100 million player because no player is £100 million. And I still stand by that's one of the biggest. I've said this millions of times. One of Harry Maguire's biggest downfalls is that he is the most expensive centre-half in the world. It's not his fault. He didn't ask to be paid for us to pay that much. He didn't say I'm worth £80 million. We paid that because that's how Leicester valued one of their assets. It's very simple as that. And one of the ways we get around that is by being smarter when we go out and buy players. Aurelien Tchouameni is one of those that is now on the radar of every top club in the world. 12, 18 months ago, you could have picked him up for pennies compared to what he's probably going to go for. Darwin Núñez, I've got my concerns about him, but you look at the price that's being put around him, £70 million, because people don't act fast enough in the market. The clubs, again, I've said it, and again, I'm aware that I'm talking a lot. Leicester get it spot on every time. You see the rumours going around in the minute. Steven Gerrard's been over to France to watch Kamara play. He's available for a free in the summer. Do we reckon that before this, our scouting network had even thought of looking at him? Probably won't sell a lot of shirts, so maybe not. They're looking at Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we become so fixated with these marketable commodities, these players that we can go, oh, look, here you go. Look at this big shiny new signing that we just wheeled out with a piano. All right. No United fan cares. You want players that are going to play for the badge, that, like I said before, are going to do the bare minimum, which is try and meet our expectation of people caring about this club as much as we do. And it's as simple as that. You get players in early enough, young enough, they'll develop that. And I'm going to stop talking there because I could go on about this topic for hours.
Nah, good points, well made. Absolutely good points, well made, buddy. No worries at all. Keen in the comments here. Evening, lads. Keen here. I hope you're well, buddy. Robbie makes a good point. I'm going to come to you about this, William. Something that Arsenal have done recently is offload a lot of wages, and they are relying a lot more upon youth. But do you think that's been a huge starting point for them in their resurgence this season? So Robbie says some large payoffs required. A lot of them that need to go, still have a few years on the contracts, won't walk away from 150 grand a week. We struggled to sell players, but I think that Arsenal have obviously, they got rid of Aubameyang, massive wages, doing well in Barcelona now, but you didn't suffer for that. But do you think that's probably where United need to start looking at, like Arsenal?
Partly, yeah. I feel like if a player doesn't suit you, who cares about the cost and getting rid of them? If they're not working out, too bad. If they help a rival, sure, you don't want them to help out a rival. That's the one way I will say. If you're getting rid of them, just go to a rival, then yeah, the business makes sense not to. But you look at it, as soon as Arteta came in for us, he saw the players that he did not want in that one transfer window in January, in his first January. He got rid of Ozil. He got rid of Mustafi. He got rid of like Socrates, all these people who he paid to get rid of. And yes, that hurts the bank a little bit more, but he knew that they were not as a good enough quality to get us anywhere. And we still finished 8th. So God knows how good they must have been. But in terms of Man United, yeah, there's probably one or two that you might want to do that. It'll help for Ten Hag that a few of his players that maybe aren't quite up to the level that he may want, maybe out of contract. There's a few of those that are a bit handy that is walking down and can get rid of that way. But I don't think the paying out is a massive deal when, let's be honest, you pay massive amounts to get these big superstars in anyway. Money's money to them, and as long as they're making a profit, they don't care about the football, as you said. So what difference does it make in paying them to get rid of them than means to paying them to get in?
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Just a quickie, Mark. I like that model. I like the way that Arsenal went about and did that. That to me was quite refreshing. In the modern day game, they turned around and said, but actually, though, from what I understand with Aubameyang and Ozil, it didn't take a lot of negotiation, but it took a lot of trust between the two parties to come up with a free. I think even Ozil just cancelled his contract, didn't he? No money whatsoever, I hear.
I think there was Willian definitely cancelled his contract completely and went off to Corinthians. Yeah, I think Ozil halved his wages, and there's something about Aubameyang's is like still half at the moment. But look, they weren't performing for us, so.
No, but what I'm saying is there was a compromise between player and club.
Oh yeah.
And that's the key element here. So I quite like the model, but I don't see any of our players compromising. I think they're just too stubborn.
Just if I can jump in on that rapid, one of the things I think it is more than anything is I think it's a matter of pride for clubs. And they don't want to admit they made a bad investment or that their assets turned bad. Because to them, if you paid out a player who's got a year left on their contract, who doesn't want to be there, and you pay them what, £10 million? What is that to a football club? Realistically, it's pennies. But what you are doing by that is you are admitting that you made a bad investment. The assets turn bad, and it is no longer profitable for you as a business or as a football club to continue to utilise that asset. And there's far too many clubs that fall foul of that. I still think there should be a model of contract for players. You give them a 12-month contract or whatever, and it gets it gets reviewed every 10 months. You don't hire staff for a shop, do you? And you go, tell you what, we'll hire you on for 5 years and we'll pay you these wages regardless of whether you turn up for work or not. No, you have to turn up and do your job. But I do think that's the admittance thing. I do think Arsenal have done quite well with that recently. Arteta's, had the balls to go, all right, Aubameyang, off you go then. See you later. There's the issue at the minute with Lacazette. So, and Nketiah was playing last night and that went all right for you, didn't it? So
yeah, scored twice.
yeah. So I think it is a pride thing for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I think Arsenal have made really positive strides. So we will talk about that now. Obviously, doom and gloom for us against Liverpool midweek. Arsenal absolutely ran riot 4-2 against Chelsea, and fair play to them. But we've obviously got to play each other at 12:30 on Saturday. Phil, how are you feeling about this game? Obviously, it's still a must-win. We need to win and gather all 3 points that we can to try and make any sort of strive for ourselves next season.
I have no expectation other than complete surrender. I mean, why would they care about Arsenal but not Liverpool? I mean, why all of a sudden would they just start caring now? I mean, none of these people care about where United are going to be next season because most of them won't be here next season. Right. So, and also what you can see collectively is that the vast majority blame each other for this. And so no one is taking responsibility and saying, I'm going to make sure I'm the best I can possibly be. You can see the collective malaise. So it really comes down to, if you're a good team, why are you not beating Manchester United? I mean, you take a look at the goals they conceded against Norwich. You take a look at the goals they conceded against Liverpool. I mean, I've seen better performances in Alleviate Select with Rod Stewart up front. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. It is the absolute disgrace that people are being asked to pay for that. Because see, here's the thing what the United players are feeling on. There are things that every single supporter in that stand could give you. Effort, care, pride, all the things. We don't pay in for that. We pay in to watch people do things we can't do. Okay? Otherwise, it's not worth our time. But the reason why we don't pay in to watch players playing football on the street. Right? There's a reason why we pay to watch professionals. It's not because we're not interested in the game. It's because we're not paying to watch people do things that we can do ourselves. We're paying to watch professional expertise. That's what they get paid for. When their agents are sitting down with a football club and saying, I want 200 grand a week. Why? Because I'm a top footballer and I'll make sure you're successful. Because what they're getting right now, you can get anywhere. I can go to League One, League Two and get that. Right? In fact, more. And so, to me, I have no expectation. And I think that helps because anger comes from expectation not being met. Apathy is different. And you hear what Roy Keane said. I'm not angry anymore. I'm sad. And that's more or less starting to reflect how I feel, where I've got to watch a car crash. I've got to watch essentially 6 more episodes of watching my parents make love. And that's what it feels like watching United. Right? And it's like, honestly, here's the thing that concerns me. Everything that Ten Hag will have told United, they'll have heard 1,000 times before, right? So, and they've ignored it. And they've ignored every bit of professional football advice they've been given, right? So my question isn't whether they hear them. My question is whether they're listening, right? And so whether they're actually committed to teams. Look, when Bruno Fernandes signed for Manchester United, they were closer to the relegation zone than what they were top 4. They finished 3rd, right, that season. The following season, they finished 2nd. And what happened? United went down the typical road. We do the bare minimum. We're doing okay. No, because see, the United's goal is just not to be shit enough where you're going to get protests, but not really compete against Man City. So as long as we're good enough, that'll do. Second, that'll do, right? Because it's going to take City to get a lot worse for United to catch them. Let's be honest. United are trying to catch City, right? So this rebuild can be done. The question is, when United start improving, are they still as committed as what they are when they're shit? Because then things won't seem so bad. Then there's protests, the mood's good. You know what? Do we really need to spend 80 billion on this midfielder? Let's get you Palestri. Let's get you Cavani on a free. Let's get you Donny van de Beek. We still don't know who signed him. Right? Guy never plays. We'll get you those guys. Let's get you Lee Grant. Let's get you people like that there. When you finish 2nd. And then the wheels come off. And we wonder why. This is why you need football people that understand the evolution of a process and that progress is not always linear. Sometimes you've got, like, if you listen to Martin Edwards talk about Ferguson, we don't know if this is true, but he said, I was never going to sack Ferguson if he'd lost the Forest because I could see all the work that was going on behind the scenes at the football club. Football people recognize that. Okay. So when you are not a football person and you're looking at everything through the lens of profit and loss, it's very easy to give up halfway through a process, just like they did with Mourinho, just like they did with Solskjaer. Okay. And here we are again. Ten Hag will get a bunch of money. There'll be all this early enthusiasm. But do they keep that enthusiasm? Can they build on that momentum and get out of their own way and abandon? Because this is what happens, lads. As soon as United find themselves in a position of relative comfort, then the urgency to act goes away. Then the urgency to remain committed to the things that got you there start to disappear. All the old habits come back. Well, it's kind of like a drug addict or an alcoholic. I can have one drink. You know, if they have one drink, it's 2 and it's 3, and then all of a sudden you're back where you were. This is exactly what happens. They're like an alcoholic trying to get off alcohol, and the withdrawals kick in after a while, and they go back to what they were. So, you know, this is what I'm concerned about.
I absolutely love the analogies, honestly. Absolutely excellent. So let me ask you, Phil, the same question I asked Jamie and Stu in a roundabout way. Do you think that changes will be made? We're seeing all the right things at the moment. The right conversations are being had. But do you think that any changes for the right reasons will happen after this summer?
Yeah, I do. But whether they remain changed is really the question. United and I have Newcastle to contend with as far as people who can bat the top of the market. United didn't bring Ten Hag in or Rangnick in to bat the top of the market. Neither of those guys buy at the top of the market. Rangnick's famous for what? Building teams with young kids across Europe or across Africa. But that's fine if you want to finish fourth in the Bundesliga with RB Leipzig. Can you win the Premier League doing that? I don't think so. Right? But Rangnick and these guys were brought in to make sure United scout players that aren't just based on commercial value. But I have if you want to see the antecedent, the way United are where they are, and I think I've talked about this on this podcast before, this goes back to when Wayne Rooney was going to leave Manchester United to go to Manchester City because he was the most wanted commercial guy in the whole football club. Woodward and the rest of the football club panicked. They wanted other players that they could commercialize and monetize to death, and then they started looking at players for the wrong reasons. Right? So again, guys, we're talking about people that are remunerated, compensated, and valued based on that, their ability to make money, not their ability to get a good football team, or they'd all have been gone, right? So, because you couldn't look me in the eye. None of those executives could look you in the eye and say, we've been a success, unless you support a bank, in which case they've been a success, unless you're an investor, in which case they've been a success. But as fans who love the football club, you know, we've been left out of the equation altogether. We're being told it's a privilege to support this football club. Shut up, don't criticize, thank. Not how it works, lads.
Yeah, good points there. And let's see what happens after the summer, obviously. But very, very good points there. Stu, obviously, as I said, coming to the game this weekend, we are a game played more than Arsenal, 3 points behind. This is very much a 6-point game. And obviously, we've also got to worry about Spurs and what they do, who are level on points, same game as Arsenal. But what are your feelings? What's the best possible outcome? Obviously, we want to win, but what are your feelings and what's the best possible outcome for us?
Well, I'm like Phil, I've got no expectations. I don't see how we can go to the Emirates and win. I watched them last night. You know, Emile Smith Rowe. He's a dynamo. You've got Ketia, and Ketia I don't think has played for the first team since January. Comes in and scores twice against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. You know, you've got Odegaard, excellent footballer, all left foot, but an excellent footballer. You got Saka, you know, 4 young, hungry footballers alongside a little bit of experience. You've got Ramsdale, who's turning out to be one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League, which shocked everybody because his previous spells at likes of Sheffield United were poor. And then you've got a young manager who, you know, whether you like him or not, and whether you respect him or not, he's got something about him clearly. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, he's going to have Arsenal moving if he gets what he wants. They stuck by him. They've taken their time, Arsenal. And I hate to say it, but at the moment, Arsenal are everything that we are aspiring to be. And that's bad. It's bad news aspiring to be a top 4 club. You know, we shouldn't be playing for top 4. And I look, I don't see, and I can't see a dramatic turnaround of form from Tuesday night to Saturday afternoon, Saturday lunchtime.
We've been saying this for weeks, haven't we, really?
Yeah, I don't see, if it suddenly arrives, then you've got to ask yourself, where's it been? It can't just suddenly arrive now. We've got, as Phil said, 6 games to go, and they're going to be 6 nightmares, because we have had ample opportunity to cement this 4th place. I mean, Chelsea have been beaten, have conceded 4 goals in each of the last 2 home games. That was Brentford and Arsenal. We've just been battered by Liverpool, and we look frightened at Liverpool. We look like children at Liverpool. Arsenal are going to be up for it. Arsenal know if they beat us Saturday, and I said last week, this week would be everything for our top 4. If they beat us Saturday, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
And even with the best will in the world, you can look and think, wow, this would be great. But it just isn't. It just isn't happening. So I've got no expectations whatsoever that we will go there and we will beat Arsenal. Sorry, I just don't.
Yeah, listen, I feel the same at the moment. I try to hold out for as much positivity as possible, and
you've got to be realistic at the same time.
You're absolutely right.
And people will turn around and say, "Well, and I've seen some on our group chat actually. What you want United to lose? No United fan wants United to lose. It's not a question of that. What it is realism. It's actually, it's understanding the game of football. That's what it is. Yeah. And I just, it is what it is, I'm afraid. I'm with Phil on it. I'm so depressed over it. What is there else to look forward to? So we'll be smiling, I'm afraid, Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. Listen, I don't disagree with either of you. I lost it and wanted the season to end months ago. And we are just having to see the same drivel every week. But throwing realism out the window, Jamie, what do you reckon?
Right, I'm going to be completely different to Phil and Stuart.
Yes, come on.
Because if there is one team that can out-banter us at the minute, it is still Arsenal. And it has been Arsenal.
I agree with you on that. Trust me, I'm not gassing up Arsenal. I think they're in the same situation United are in.
Yeah, I think that this stinks of something ridiculous happening. It seems to always happen whenever we play. Even going back to, I can't remember what season it was. I want to say it was 2 seasons ago. Just even down to Xhaka scoring the easiest 30-yard shot he'll ever have, just because De Gea decided to just go, I'm going to go the other way. Look, last night's result for Arsenal was fantastic. I think it says more like where Chelsea are at the minute than it does about Arsenal. No offence, Will. Tuchel said in his post-match interview that he thinks the pitch was a problem.
I know. I read that.
Yeah, my friend, it's your pitch. Like, you know about the pitch was a problem. I can understand if they'd just gone and played, I don't know, Wrexham, or probably not even Wrexham these days. Actually, if they're going to play down at Chichester or somewhere like that, and they've been like, oh yeah, the pitch was a bit bubbly. But it's like, mate, it's Stamford Bridge. It's your own ground. You know about the pitch is bad. Let's not forget that before prior to the Chelsea win, Arsenal had lost their last 3 on the bounce. So they're probably in a similar vein of form to us at the minute in terms of results, which is hilarious that either of us are still in with a mathematical shout for the top 4. I think it just shows how poor the competition is in the Premier League. I don't want to make any predictions because I think Arsenal versus United is incredibly unpredictable.
We will be making predictions at the end. Sorry, mate.
Oh, well, all right. Well, I'll save it for it. But, I think back to there was a game against Arsenal in November 2013, I want to say it was. We were in bad form under David Moyes, and Robin Van Persie scored the winner.
He did. Yeah.
We always seem to be able to. Don't ask me how I remember that specific. I think it was Remembrance Sunday. I think that's why I remember, because there was all the poppy stuff out.
Excuse the pun.
Yeah. So look, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I still think that Arteta's out of his depth with Arsenal. I think he's done a decent job, and I think he might be running the risk of what Solskjaer ended up in that you've done what you needed to do at the time. Potentially, it's time for Arsenal to maybe look at parting ways in a mutual agreement. Get somebody in now to take them to the next level, because there's no shame in a manager being able to And I said this about Solskjaer towards the end of his tenure. There is no shame in a manager only being able to do so much, and it then being the right time for the next person to step in. I think that Arteta gets them playing decent football. And again, I agree with Stu. I think the crop of players that they've got coming through are good. I think they're proud to play for the football club. And I don't mean this in a negative way, Will, but I think the expectations are potentially a little bit different for playing for Arsenal at the minute than they are for United. I think United still do have that unbelievable pressure every time you step out on the football pitch. I still think Saka is an absolutely world-beating winger. Like, I think he'll just grow into it'll just grow into being just somebody that's fantastic. My fear if I was an Arsenal fan, is that it stinks of him going to Liverpool, to City, when he gets to that next sort of level, because he'll want to, fulfill his dreams. I really like Smith Rowe. I think he's fantastic with the ball at his feet. He's a good technician. I don't think you see much of that. I think he's quite a rare ilk of player. And again, I do like Odegaard as well. But as long as your club employs players like Granit Xhaka, who knows what's going to happen? Nuno Tavares seems to be an interesting character. I signed him on a FIFA career mode a few years ago, and he turned into a world beater. But it doesn't look like that's the case in reality. So look, I think that the fixture is going to be an interesting one. Hopefully, we have a few players back from injury. Hopefully, Edison Cavani fancies that. He's up for it. He takes the slippers off, and we can actually have a striker up front. But who knows? It's going to be fun.
Who knows, indeed. Very contrasting answers from all three. But William, after hearing that, you must be extremely positive about this weekend. But how are you feeling?
I don't know entirely, because if there's anything more Arsenal, then is there anything more Arsenal than going out and beating Chelsea than the next week losing to United? And I've said it the whole time that victory against Chelsea won't mean anything. Now, I can take a bit of confidence off of the last few times during the season that when we've gone out and lost a few, after we've gotten that first victory, usually we have kicked on the rest of the season. I think about how we lost to Liverpool, United and Everton within the space of 4 games last time. And then we went to whole December unbeaten. I kind of hope that, that was the win that'll kick us on, but I'm a bit nervous that you'll end up just showing up because of this announcement that Ten Hag comes and that all the players, your defenders, may actually learn how to defend. I am a bit nervous, but at the same time, if your midfielders aren't fit, it reeks of me nearly of Arsenal v Man United in 2015. I'm pretty sure it was, that we could do the same, that your midfield might not have much legs at all if you have to play like Matic in there, and that we could blitz you in the first 10 minutes and then the game be over 3-0. Like, there is a possibility that we have that, but there's also a possibility that Arsenal, if we don't score in the first 20-odd minutes, that it's just going to be one of them frustrating days where the crowd get on their back, which we really don't need. We need the Emirates absolutely hopping in order to kick the team forward for this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on the midfield, actually, because that was going to be my next question for Phil.
Arsenal and United have the same owners, okay, who are doing everything they can to get football towards a situation where revenue and success has got nothing to do with merit. This is why the Super League happened. This is why the Champions League is in its current format. They want to do everything possible to remove the consequences of failure. In American sports, you're rewarded for failure. If you finish nowhere at the bottom, you get first-round draft pick. These are not owners that have any concern about building teams. Manchester United and Arsenal play to win the next game. Liverpool and City are playing to win the title. There's a massive difference, right? These are teams that are set up to be just good enough where there's no damage to the brand, and where you can generate revenue in the top 4, where you get all the same money more or less anyway. Winning trophies is for romantics. Winning profit is for people like the Glazers and for people like Stan Kroenke, whose wife is richer than him, by the way. His wife pretty much.
She is, yeah, she's minted into it.
Yeah. I mean, if you see how rich his wife is and the parsimony with which Arsenal is run, it's a mental illness. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Jeff Bezos sending his kid to the shop with 10p. I mean, if he spent 15, it really wouldn't matter, but it's a mental illness. You see, the thing is that they value saving that 5p more than anything else. That's a personality trait. That's exactly what you see at Arsenal and United. There's no Arsenal haven't won the league since 2004. What changed 2004? Chelsea got money. Then City got money. They haven't tried to compete since then. The only difference between United and United lost Ferguson a bit later, and then the decline happened. Because once the football club wasn't being run by competent people, you get what you get. Same happened at Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Just a quick question for you, Phil. With regards to midfield, William mentioned that obviously we really struggled against Liverpool, especially with the presence of Thiago. McTominay looks like he's going to be fit. There's a 75% chance of Fred to return. Ralph said yesterday, 2 days ago, he said Pogba pulled his calf muscle, and as it seems right now, this would not be an injury like the one Fred has, which we should see him within the next few days. So with that in mind, who would you like to see in the midfield, and who do you think is needed against that Arsenal midfield?
Look, I think without a doubt, the two best midfielders in that current position are Fred and McTominay from what we have available. Whether that's good enough to be a successful team or not, that's a different question. But there's no question. I mean, there's certain players I would exonerate from treachery. And Fred and McTominay are two of them, in my opinion. Because I can forgive not being good enough. I can forgive bad form. But what I can't forgive is players not giving 100%. Bruno Fernandes looks like someone that's frustrated with the situation rather than someone that's a contributor to it. Sancho, I would exonerate. Elanga, I would exonerate. But there's a whole bunch of them I wouldn't. And so, to me, I think I would start Fred and McTominay. If they're available. You see against Norwich, you saw against Liverpool just how poor United are in the centre midfield without them.
Yeah, good points well made. Stu, are you in agreement?
Yeah, well, Phil's right. I don't think Fred and McTominay are going to be available. So Pogba's obviously not available. So for me, I'd bring in Mata. You're going to have to play Matic as a holding player. I'd stick Bruno as an 8 and put Mata as a 10. It's not ideal, I know, but sometimes you've got to shake it up, haven't you, in terms of, in football. The problem we've got is we've got two aging players in Mata and in Matic, but as Jamie pointed out, Arsenal have Xhaka, and when that idiot takes the pitch, anything can happen, and he could just lose his head. Arsenal could go down to 10 men, and Mata could actually take over. The thing about Mata is he's got the guile, he's got the, he can take the ball in tight areas, he can take the ball on the half turn. We know he's got no pace, but can he pick a pass? And Phil's right, Bruno, at the minute, he looks completely disinterested. He doesn't look happy. There's just something about his body language that isn't there. And Ronaldo is obviously going to come back up, and I'd play Sancho. And look, I'd give Lingard a start.
So he can dance at the Emirates again.
Yeah, I'll give Lingard a start because look, there's no point putting Lingard into the middle, the middle three. Rashford, I thought Rashford and Sancho were two of our better players against Liverpool, and that's scraping the barrel. Let's be honest. But I think you sometimes I say it a lot. In terms of football, you've got to go rogue. I would go rogue. I mean, give Arsenal a bit of a headache. They won't be expecting Mata to play. They won't be expecting Mata and Matic anyway to play. I just think with Bruno in the 8, he could give us a bit more dynamism. Mata can pick a pass. Sancho looked great when he came on against Liverpool, in my humble opinion. Ronaldo could get us the goal we needed. And Lingard's playing for a move. We know he's going in the summer. He's got to play for a move. But first choice would be, as Phil says, and I'm sure Jamie will agree, would be Fred and McTominay. It's not going to happen, I don't think. And so why not? What have we actually got to lose on Saturday by playing a different team, a bit of a radical team? What have we got to lose? As a club, we've got nothing to lose. I saw somebody today saying, let's get 8th. Let's stay out of Europe next season. I don't want that. So that's what I would do. It's a bit radical. Most people wouldn't agree with me, but that's what I think.
Yeah, good points well made. Don't disagree with you, actually. One thing that I was incredibly impressed with, as you said, scraping the barrel, that nobody's mentioned yet is Hannibal Mejbri. I saw more passion and I know you're shaking your head, Stu, but I'm going to come to this quickly. But
I know what you're going to say.
I saw more passion and fight in that man within 10 minutes than I've seen from anybody else this season. With what you've said in mind, we've got nothing to lose. Jamie, would you perhaps give him a bit of a shout again, more minutes this time, even start him?
I mean, yeah, he's one of those, isn't it? At the start of the season, we all sit down and we talk about the youth prospects that we'd like to see, burst onto the scene that year and see them, blood. We've all mentioned the likes of Hannibal before, Charlie McNeil, Joe Hugill, Garnacho, all of them. We've all touted them around. Seeing that brief cameo from Hannibal, in the context of what happened, yes, was a spark, because it was passion, something that was lacking from the other 10 players that were on the pitch wearing United jerseys at the point. Out of context, though, with a level head on, I think it showed that he was a bit rash. He was running around a little bit too much. But yeah. The United fan in me loved it, absolutely loved it. The fact that he went into the Liverpool captain at Anfield after playing for 2 minutes, he's 19, he's 19, and just decided to go, go on, I'll have a go. Loved it. And I think him versus Xhaka, if we were to play Hannibal in some form of midfield three, he is the sort of player that will get into Xhaka's head. One of them would get sent off. My only problem is where the fan base is at the minute. Everyone keeps saying, let's blood these young players, yeah? But the patience that this fan base has is non-existent. So if you look at Alanga, like realistically, this is Alanga's maiden season for the seniors. I think he's doing well. Like Phil said, I don't think he's lumped in with the rest of the dross. I think he cares. But look at people already turning on him. You see comments all over social media saying, "Oh, he's not good enough to play for United." It's just like he's a kid. Do you know what I mean? He's a literal, young adult at a push. And people are already jumping on Twitter saying, "Oh, he's not good enough. He's a fraud." He's playing in one of the worst United sides that we've seen for years, and yet he's still managing to be a bit of a bright spark. So yeah, I take a couple of the youngsters with us. Again, we've got nothing to lose. You know what? It'll be our luck. We'll qualify for the Europa League, and West Ham will win the Europa League and knock us out of it and put us into the Conference League, which. I don't think anyone really wants that, but it's a good chance if we get it to have a run of extra games next year and put in the youngsters and get used to his tactics. But yeah, I'll agree with both Phil and Stu. Freddie McTominay would be my pick for if we're playing a pivot. Which, if you'd have said that 6 months ago to me, I'd have punched myself in the face, because I think you both know what my thoughts were on playing in the pivot. Fred has been, and I will say this on record, Fred has been the best player under Ralph Rangnick. He's like a different man. I think he operates more akin to how he operates for Brazil, which suits him to a T. And with a couple of signings around him next season, whether that be in the defence, in the midfield around him, I do think that Fred can kick on and hit another level. But Thomas Partey's been a bit crap for Arsenal, so we all thought he was going to go in and be a world beater.
He's injured, I think.
But my favourite one at the time was everyone was screaming for Partey to be, he's the one we should have gone for and stuff like that. And as it turned out, Fred was better than him. So,
yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Will.
How the tables have turned, eh? Right, I'm just going to do, we're going to finish up a minute. Just want to say thanks for everybody tuning in tonight. Comments have been good. Get like and subscribe, as I said, it's really important to us. Going to quickly ask you score predictions. I might not bother asking Phil and Stu because it might be a bit disappointing, but score predictions.
I've got a score prediction.
And first goal scorer. I'll come to you first, William.
I'll go 3-1 Arsenal.
Ooh,
and
easy.
It's the last time he gets invited on here.
I'm going for the optimist one, not the negative one. I think first goal scorer, I'll go Bukayo Saka for the first goal scorer, and Ronaldo will score for you.
Okay, 3-1 Arsenal, Bukayo Saka to score first. Phil, what about yourself?
There's honestly nothing consistent about either team that would lead me to a confident conclusion where I would say they do this well, they do this well, they do this well, they do this well.
Right.
But I would say that Arsenal will win it slightly because they just slightly haven't given up as much as United. But there's no winners, there's two losers.
Okay. Stu?
As much as I agree with Phil, I won't go on that offence, but I do agree with him. He's right.
Yeah, that's right.
But so I'm going to
the best of a bad bunch will win.
Hey, I'm going for the optimistic Man United fan score then. We're going to win 2-1. Xhaka to get sent off, which I'll probably stick a bet on that. And I'm going to go for big HM, big Harry Maguire to pop a header in for the first. There you go.
I tell you what, a win for United, a sending off for Xhaka and Harry Maguire to get the winner. I wonder what the odds are on there. Jamie, over to you, my man.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3. It's a United podcast. I'm going 3-2 United. I think Jadon Sancho will be an absolute nightmare for the Arsenal fullbacks. You know, if you play Tomiyasu and Tavares, I think they've both got talent there somewhere, but I just don't think that either of them have the intelligence level that Sancho has, and I think he'll run rings. Which you watch, that'll come back to bite me now. I've specifically said that exact thing. Tomiyasu will pocket him.
Well, that's if Tomiyasu's fit enough to play. To be fair, he has been injured since January, so I don't expect him to be back. And then you've got Ben White or Cedric at right back. So
there you go. Well, there you go. Cedric will find some of that form that he used to have occasionally for Southampton.
Well, they've got Burnley beat them 2-0 tonight, haven't they?
2-0.
Yeah. Michael Jackson masterclass.
Yeah.
But yeah, 3-2. I reckon it'll be 2-2 until around the 80th minute. And we'll score, and it'll be something like Harry Maguire will score.
Yes, that's it, Jamie. Well done, mate. Well done.
You know, Peter Drury will be somewhere writing some Shakespearean commentary about how in a week of bomb scares in his house, he's just put a bomb into Arsenal's title top 4 charge.
He will, won't he? Yeah. Nice.
He's always brilliant at that. I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic than you lot, and I'm going to say 3-1 to United. I'm gonna be more positive, and I think we're gonna swallow our pride, get on with it, and win 3-1. And I think Sancho is going to be deadly. I absolutely agree with you. I think he will cause problems, and I think he's going to be my first goal scorer. Right, listen. Thank you everybody for coming on tonight. It's been a really, really wonderful chat.
Thanks,
Phil, great to see you, buddy. Obviously, Stu, Jamie, and William. Really good to have you on, guys. Thanks to everybody, as I said in the comments, and everybody that's watching. And yeah, we've got a few shows coming up. Reaction on Saturday, of course, with yours truly. And yeah, we will see you.
Oh, well, we're losing then, aren't we?
Well, yeah. I tell you what, Phil. Just so you know, my record at the moment in the last 8 months, of course, United being shit, and my reactions has been terrible. And people are calling for my retirement, so maybe that's what needs to happen first. But anyway, listen, great to have you all. Thank you so much for coming on, and great to everyone in the comments. And we'll see you next time.
All right.